1 Samuel 17. Lesson 2. What kind of heart does David have this week? A courageous heart. And remember the two things that we're trying to keep as the pillars of our study. One's about God. Always, through all of this, God is what?
In charge.
He is in charge. He is sovereign. God is always right. God never confuses or lies. He is all-powerful. And His power and His sovereignty just come out in every lesson. But what about David? What is our first thought all the way through about David?
God, after God's own heart.
A man after God's own heart. And even though he stumbled, and at one point stumbled severely, the big picture of David is great. And that's why we're studying him. A man after God's own heart. So now we come to the story, the second story in our series, David and Goliath. It's a great story that we heard first as children. And now here we are, some of us, decades and scores after that, we're studying it again because it teaches us a great deal. Did David kill Goliath? It's kind of a trick question.
God killed Goliath.
God killed Goliath. Did David kill the lion and the bear? David said, God delivered, God delivered, God delivered me. And so there, the whole focal point of this lesson is God, His power, His will, and how things work together, you see. And David, yes, David was a warrior. David was strong. He was an impressive young man. He was good looking. He was ruddy. He was bright-eyed. Everyone who ever met David had to be impressed, but he didn't kill the lion and the bear by himself. Who can do that? Doug could with one of his rifles, but David didn't have that kind of weaponry. And we'll talk about what he had in just a moment. The Philistines. Friend or foe?
Foes, always.
Serious foes. And there's a battle taking place here, and it's been going on. The war with the Philistines has been going on for a long, long time. You may remember several chapters back when Eli was an old man, and things hadn't ended well for Eli, who was a great prophet and was even a judge, if we want to narrow the definition of a judge down a little bit. But Eli's sons were bad. And that just put a really, really negative, sour note on his whole priesthood. But Eli was an old man sitting on a bench or a rock, sitting on something, when he heard the Philistines had taken the ark. And he fell over backwards and died. He fell over backwards and broke his neck as an old man. This war with the Philistines has been going on for a long time, and it is going to continue for many, many years, you see. And this valley of Elam, where they were, it's right in the center of the war that's going on right now, 3,000 years later. Because you see, this valley is within just a few miles of Bethlehem and within a few miles of Jerusalem. It's only about 20 miles from the ocean, from the Mediterranean. It's right there in the heart of what we know as Israel. It's right there. And so all of this with Gaza and all the horrors, starting with the attack on Israel, where so many were killed suddenly. Here it is 3,000 years later. It's not the Philistines per se, it's Palestinian people. It's heartbreaking that we read about a story 3,000 years ago. They're arrayed in battle in this valley. And by the way, this valley is beautiful today. It is a historic site. It is There's hiking trails. I've never been there, but I've read about it. There's hiking trails. There's overlooks down in the valley. There's little farms. There's little vineyards. It's a very pastoral setting where this took place. And people go there to commemorate what happened. Yes, Eli.
I just want your comments on this relationship between the Philistines and the Jews that lasted so long. Sometimes they were buying weapons from the Philistines and they were using each other instead of killing each other. And then they would go back to killing each other.
What's my comment about that?
Yes.
God's in control. That's the only way I know to look at those things. There are a lot of enduring questions in the Old Testament about the violence, about the death of children, the death of women, about God's command to wipe out a whole people, okay, the Amalekites. There's a lot of discussion to be had there. But in the whole big picture of things, what we've got to understand, God is sovereign and perfect. And His will goes far beyond what we can understand sometimes. I don't know how to answer your question about this ebb and flow and sharing of weapons and all that. I don't really know how to explain that except God was in charge of it. And all those things were written for what? For our learning. You know, we're studying events that happened 3,000 years ago. The major event in our life happened 2,000 years ago. But we're studying David because a study of David is to study God. It's to study the history. Because you see, it was his lineage, through the lineage of David, that Jesus came to be born, which is another story for another lesson. So here we are in this valley close to Bethlehem. There's two armies on two ridges with a valley in between. It reminds me of Gettysburg. Those of you who have studied Gettysburg, especially the third day, you got Cemetery Ridge, where the Union Army was. Seminary Ridge, across the valley, where the Lee's Army was. And then Pickett's Charge, across that valley. Destructive, horrible thing. And General Grant saying afterwards, oh, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. And it was horrible. This setup here reminds me of Gettysburg. You got the Philistines on a ridge, the army of Israel, Saul's army on a ridge, and this valley in between where they were skirmishing and they were fighting. So, one of our questions in today's lesson on your little worksheet here is, who was Goliath? Who was he?
He was a giant.
He was a giant first and foremost.
David, I think they say picked up 5 stones. If I'm right, and this is an assumption, not a known fact, Goliath had 4 brothers.
At least
Yeah.
4 brothers who were giants as well. He was a Philistine. He was a warrior. And he was big. He was big. So we have a question about a description of Goliath. Let's talk about that. Tell me what he looked like.
Over 9 feet tall.
He was 9 feet 9 inches tall based on our best estimate of cubits.
You remember when John got up on stage and showed us what 9 feet 6 inches were?
Yeah.
That's
That's big.
I mean,
The tallest, yeah, go ahead.
I saw there was a Soviet women's basketball player walking around campus when I was at school, back when they were first starting to branch out, and she was 7'1".
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I have coached against 7'4". I've played against 7'4".
Yeah.
You know, when we were preparing to play this team, I taped tennis rackets to the post players, the number 4 and 5 players. We taped tennis rackets to their arms so that we could learn how to deal with that much extra height, you see. And we're talking 9.5 feet here. That's our best estimate based on a cubit, based on the fact that as far as we can tell, a cubit was about 18 inches. give or take a little bit. There was no standards of weights and measures then. There was no metric system, no English system. But that's about the distance from your elbow to your fingertip. And a span is about half that, the distance from your little finger to your thumb when it's open. So yes, Leanne, about 9.5 feet tall.
That doesn't account for his actual size.
Yeah, how big was he? How much did he weigh? Shaquille. I think of Shaquille.
Yeah, I mean, when you see him and how he compares standing next to other people, and consider his actual size around, and I'm not sure how tall he is, 7-something, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you add a couple more
Yeah, 2.5 more feet.
in height and around, you know.
Is this a myth or is it real? It's real. What about his armor?
He must have been an extremely strong man because his armor weighed about 100 pounds.
I've read 3 estimates. His armor was anywhere from 100 to 150 pounds. So I'm going to say 125 was the weight of his armor. And his armor was a coat of mail. Now that's not like the steel, armor that we see on the Three Stooges. When there's y'all watched Three Stooges, didn't you?
Yes.
And the faceplate would open and close, and they would start running. It wasn't that type armor. It was a coat of mail, which was like rings of bronze connected. So it really had flexibility, and it was heavy. And it was made of all these rings. You've seen pictures of it. And a spear couldn't cut through it, or a sword couldn't cut through it, and a spear couldn't penetrate it, but it was flexible. It allowed someone to move. That weighed over 100 pounds. The head of his spear weighed approximately what? It was made of iron, by the way. It's about 15 pounds. That's a big bowling ball. The staff of that spear was like a weaver's beam. And all of this is easy to understand when you consider a guy so big his head would be going above the ceiling here. And I don't know, weighed 500 pounds or more. So he comes out and he's scary. He's really scary. Doug?
Just before we get into that, a couple of things. First of all is the wisdom of the Bible by giving us specifics.
Yes.
He could have said he was a giant, his coat, he was heavy or what, but we've got specifics.
Yes.
The other thing is, why did he need all this protection? And the only thing I came up with is maybe against bow and arrow,
Yes.
people launching stuff like that.
And other
from
weapons.
a distance.
From a distance, yeah. Yeah, that was it. And imagine putting on a coat of mail that weighed over 100 pounds and yielding a spear that had a head that weighed 15 pounds. And the thing that strikes me about all this is the advance of metallurgy way before this. This is 3,000 years ago. Our Native Americans here, up until just the late 1700s, were living in the Stone Age. Think about that. And yet Egypt had built the pyramids, and they had gold and silver were being refined many years before this. This is the Bronze Age. Bronze was like a mixture of tin and copper. And then the Iron Age came next, actually, and then steel. But how all that, it's amazing to me. Because our Native Americans here, they never got past the Stone Age in the years that they were here. They didn't even have the wheel. Think about it. Our Native Americans drug everything around on big poles. That's how they tracked them, because they left skid marks. It's just very interesting. So this guy is really well armed for whatever reason, and he is huge. So he comes out to the front and says what?
Send somebody.
Send somebody to fight me. One man. Find one man and send him out here to fight me. And so the volunteers rushed forward. Or not. They were greatly afraid. They were greatly afraid. We would say they were shaking in their boots. Send me one man. Just bring one over here, and if he beats me and kills me, we'll all be your servants. But if I beat him and kill him, then you'll all be our servants. Just send me one man. He did this how often? 40 days he did this. And I'm sorry?
Morning and evening?
Yes, 40 days, morning and evening, and they were still afraid, sorely afraid, and they were backing up. Now apparently there was some skirmishing going on, There was some fighting going on. At least the text seems to suggest that to me, that there was some fighting going on, but nothing of a big nature. And so they were afraid. Yes, Doug?
I was just going to say, from whenever I watched that video, it's like the rest of the army just stand there and look at each other. But I'm sure that there were some other fighters.
But by and large, they did stand there looking at each other. That's what they did. And so, how does David enter this picture? He's a shepherd boy. Remember, we're studying David as a psalmist, first as a shepherd, then as a psalmist, then as a warrior, then as a king. 4 ways. He's still basically a shepherd boy. How does he appear on the scene?
They ran out of bread after 40 days, and Daddy sent him with grub.
And the father, Jesse, was an old man, the Bible says. He was old and frail. He had 3 sons. His 3 oldest sons were with the army with Saul. Remember, this is not far away. This is like, a short hike. This is like hiking over to Crab Orchard from here. It was close. And so he said, here, take this food. And by the way, take 10 cheeses and give the captain. Take care of him. But take this grain and take these cakes and go check on your brothers. That's quite normal, isn't it? Send the young one, the shepherd. So David made arrangements for somebody to watch the sheep, and David takes the food and he goes to check on his brothers. And when he gets there, what does he find?
2 armies stared at each other.
He finds a stalemate. And he hears these reports of Goliath. And David said, who is this what? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he can defy the armies of God? Apparently no one else was saying that. Apparently no one else had the courage. Remember the courage of David. He stepped forward. Who is this Philistine? Who is this guy that can defy the armies of God? And so he hears all this talk. And it's repeated. And they're talking about him, and they said, okay, the men are saying, and you can just imagine them all gathered around talking, and they're all afraid of Goliath, and they're saying, whoever does kill him, he's got a reward coming. What was that reward going to be? Saul would give him what? His daughter. Would give him his daughter. Okay, that means a queen. That means a queen, a princess, royal family. Not only that, what else was he going to give him?
A lot of money.
Money. And not only that, but he wasn't going to have to pay taxes. He was going to live tax-free. That got my attention. I don't pay near as much tax as some people do, but I don't like paying it. Tennessee sales tax drives me crazy. However, we don't have an income tax, so I guess we got to remember that when we're paying that 9 3/4% sales tax that we don't have the other. But anyway, he was going to get to do all that, and so David hears this repeatedly, and it has an effect on him. And so what does he do? He, after saying, who is this uncircumcised Philistine, he actually wants to see who? Saul. He actually wants to see Saul. And in the course of all this discourse and conversation, his older brother Eliab chews him out, calls him insolent. Let's find those verses and look at that. We've moved ahead now to about verse 28. Yeah, verse 28 of 1 Samuel 17. This is an older brother for you. And Doug, one of the great things about the Bible is detail. Specificity and detail. One of the great things. Here's an older brother who don't like any of this. He's a soldier. This kid, we don't know how old he is, 20 years old, whatever, he's impressive. He comes and he wants to participate in this deal with Goliath, and he's listening to what these men are saying, and he's inquiring. So Eliab says what? Look at verse 28. Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, "Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness?" You think he was really concerned about the sheep? No, it's just something to throw at him. "I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." And David says, what have I done?
Now.
Yeah.
What have I done now?
Yeah.
Makes you think, you know,
Yeah.
they've had
What have
time
I
to-
done now? And don't I have cause? Somebody needs to come down. Don't I have cause? What have I done now? So there's a sibling rivalry situation. There's an older brother being outshined by a younger brother, and the Bible's very specific about that. I just think it's interesting that is pointed out. And the verse about the who is this Philistine, you'll find just a little bit above that in verse, the print in this Bible is so small.
26.
Yeah, verse 26. Who is this? Who is this man that's going to defy the armies? So as our story continues, and Doug's going to let me know when we got 10 minutes, because
You're good.
we got something to talk about at the end of this lesson that is very interesting. So I want to go see Saul. So he goes to see Saul, and he says, "I'll fight him." But basically, that's what he says. "I'll do it." Out of all the army, this shepherd, this young man, comes up and says, "I'll do it." And Saul says, what? You're just a kid. You're a youth. This guy's been a warrior since his youth. You can't do this. You're not able to do this. Yes, sir.
The YouTube has a segment on it, and just as Doug was saying, they take some license with that, with the event where he was talking to his brother. They show David with his brother, and his brother's chastising him, and David said, "Oh yeah, watch this," and he said, "I'll show you how good I am," and he got some stones, and he shot it through a slingshot. He knocked over 3 pots, and that really impressed his brother. Now that's not in the Bible, but that's when they do take that license, and that kind of gave him impetus, and I guess more courage to
Sure.
go to talk to Saul.
Sure. I'd like to talk about slingshots a little bit and come back to you in just a second, Frank. But I had a friend growing up.
What did he do when he was
He ain't gonna let me.
with the sheep with the sling?
What?
He can't
What
hear.
did David use that sling for?
Defense.
Yeah. I
Defense.
would say that he would kill rabbits with it
Yeah.
for food, because he's out there with the sheep. And if you have a fox or something like that that's going
Absolutely.
after them, I bet he whacked them with it. So he
Yeah.
used that thing every day.
And he probably hit lions and bears and ran them off
Yeah.
with it as well. I'm fascinated with slingshots. How many of you older guys, because those of you who are real young, you just don't understand. But how many of you older guys made a slingshot as a kid?
Flipper.
I mean, it was a big deal. You first found the perfect Y, strong, maybe hickory. And then you went looking for the right inner tube. Now, I'll tell you how old I am. We looked for red rubber. And why, David? Why did we want the red rubber?
Stretched better than the black.
Because it was real rubber. These were the days when you could still go to the junkyards and find old inner tubes with real rubber, and you wanted. Thank you, David. You and I we're out together on that.
We're old guys.
This wasn't that kind of sling.
No.
It's totally different. This worked off a centrifugal force. We're running out of time here, but Barney tried to show Opie how to shoot the slingshot. And Barney brought up Goliath and David. And Barney said, this is how, this is how David killed Goliath. And Andy told him, he said, no, that's not how it happened. Opie's outside by now. Barney says, what are you talking about? He said it was a sling. And Barney argued with him. And so you remember what Andy said? Where did he get the rubber? where did he get the rubber? And Barney called him a know-it-all and stormed out of the courthouse. So the sling is a marvelous weapon. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with it. Now back to the slingshot. This sounds like a lie. I promise you this is the truth. There was a young man lived across the hollow from us. They were farmers, we were farmers. His name was Buck Ernest. He was about as wild as Tarzan. And he made great slingshots. And he shot ball bearings. Okay, it was like a .22 rifle. But believe it or not, Buck was so good that when we would go fishing and we would run out of bait. Have you ever run out of bait fishing? Mm-hmm. You start looking for something the fish might bite. You know what snake doctors are? Does anybody know what a snake doctor is? What is it? What? It's a dragon. It's basically a dragonfly. They look like a helicopter. You get around a pine bank and they're just hovering. And they're about that wide. Buck pulled out his slingshot and shoot one out of the air and said, now we got bait. That's how, from me to you.
No way.
Yeah. He was that good. He was that good. I knew somebody would make me out alive. David says, I can do it because I killed what? A bear and a lion who came to get the sheep. He tells Saul the story about the lion and the bear. And he said, I killed him. I grabbed his mane and I stabbed him and I killed him. But he goes further than that. What does he say? God delivered them to me. Key point of this lesson. God gets the glory, not David. I love it when athletes, although they may not understand the gospel like they should, but I love it when an athlete gives God the glory for something they've done. I just love to see that. And you see it occasionally, and it's really encouraging. Yes, Jake?
Are there still lines over there?
Probably not. And that's a really good question. Things have really changed a lot in Israel and Palestine, in the Middle East over the centuries. There's been so much erosion, so much over farming that it doesn't even resemble what it did 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago, they did have lions and bears.
I just never think about lions being over there.
You know, you go back 200 years or 200 years plus, we had mountain lions right here in this county. I'm not going to argue that with you. We're not going to get into that argument, but yeah, we got black bears right now roaming around. We do, close to some of our homes, big black bears with babies. So yeah, to answer your question, Jake, probably not today. Probably no lions and probably no bears in that whole area, but there were. The landscape has changed. The climate has changed over there as well because of so many things. Yes? I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, Bruce, I'm sorry.
I have a subscription to a magazine. It's called BAR, Bible Archaeology Research.
Right.
And I've seen pictures of images that have been uncovered, showed the line of battle, the order of battle. And the slingers were first. They had the short distance, and they could sling a rock for over 100 miles an hour.
Which yeah.
And then after them would be the bows.
Yes, the arrows, yeah.
But the slingers were the first.
They were the first line, the first line. And David was good with this sling. We got 10 minutes, so we're going to hurry along here. Yeah, he was very effective with this. He literally did this and knew exactly when to let one in go and hit a target. Very impressive, Dan.
Daughter-in-law went out walking with her daughter 2-3 weeks ago in Cookville, 4th Street, which is in Brown Catholic Church. Met up with a bear and a mama. A bear in the
Yeah, walked right into them. Yeah.
right in the street, in the same block.
It's fascinating how they've adapted to urban living, and they really have. We got to hurry here. So the meeting of Goliath and David. What did Goliath do? He laughed at him. He laughed at him. Do you think you're coming out to fight a dog with a stick? He laughed at him. He said, I'm going to feed your carcass to the birds and to the wild beast. And so David said something so beautiful. It's a question on your worksheet. He said, you come at me with what? A sword, a spear, and a javelin. And remember, he also had an armor bearer in front of him. He had an armor bearer going. He said, you come at me with all this, but I come at you with what? The Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have what? Defied. That's what I'm bringing. And so they come together, and we know the story well from our youth. He takes one of those 5 stones, only one. And he hits him right between the eyes. And the Bible says he didn't just hit him, that the stone sunk into his forehead. God did this. David had the courage because he knew God would deliver him. The giant fell dead. The Bible says he fell dead. David had told him, not only am I going to kill you and I'm going to feed your carcass to the birds of the air and the wild beast, but I'm going to do what? I'm going to cut your head off. That's pretty bold talk for a little boy or a young man. And so after he's dead, some people would argue, well, he didn't die till he got his head cut off. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible uses the word killed twice here. Yes. For when he hit him with the stone and then when he cut his head off. Well, he was already dead from all. At least that's what I see. I see a dead man who got his head removed. He didn't have a sword. He pulled Goliath's sword, which, by the way, will come up in a future lesson. And he takes his head. Okay? The King James says slew. The New King James says killed. Goliath is no more. And so now, and this is what I wanted us to have a little time to talk about. This celebrated act, Saul ask a question. Now remember, David has gone to Saul, told him about the lion and the bear. We skipped over the part about Saul gave him his armor, and David said, I can't wear this. It says he hadn't tested it. But even if he had tested it, Saul was probably a foot taller than David. He couldn't really wear that. So he didn't wear it. Saul asked a question which makes us ask a question. When he asked Abner, the head guy over the army, he asked him what? Whose son is this young man? That causes us to pause a minute. Abner said, as the Lord lives, I don't know. So he finds out, comes back and brings him to Saul, and Saul says, whose son are you? And he says, I'm the son of Jesse, the Ephrathite, from the tribe of Ephraim, the Ephrathite. That's my father. The question before us now is, with what little time we got left, it's a good question. How is it that Saul knew him and then didn't know him and then knew him? Because chapter 16 says he loved him. David played for him when he had the distressing spirit. Okay? He knew him. He knew he was the son of Jesse. He knew that. So how is it he knew that and then he didn't know it? That's the question we're going to end with today. What are your thoughts?
Passage of time.
Passage of time.
How do you know how much time has been since he played for him, and then to this point in time, he grew and was unrecognizable? That's a very good possibility. Passage of time.
I would give that thought value. Now, but there's other thoughts. What's another reason he may not have recognized it?
Distressing spirit could have caused his memory.
You know, in West Tennessee, when we say he's messed up, he's messed up. Saul was messed up. His distressing spirit is going to plague him. He is going to be in and out of reality. He's going to try to kill David, and then he's going to say, I'm sorry, and then he's going to try to kill him again, and all. This guy was messed up.
Do you remember if Abner and David had had prior?
Not before this.
Okay.
But Abner and Joab are going to be key figures in this whole study. Abner and Joab are going to come to the front. But Abner said, I don't know, but I'll find out. That's another reason. The third reason, and then Frank's going to talk, the third reason is we like to see things in chronological order, but the Bible doesn't present things in chronological order. You remember a few years ago in 2022, many of you were in the class we studied the last week of David's life. And when we studied the last week of David's life, from the triumphant entry into Jerusalem all the way to his death, you remember that we had to constantly say, we had to take Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all their accounts, and figure out the sequence. Because the sequence of events, the chronology, was not always presented in the way it actually occurred. So the third possibility is, the first one is passage of time. That's good, L.A. The second one was his messed up brain. And the third one is, maybe, I'm just suggesting maybe, this event happened before the other one. Maybe he killed Goliath before he was called. And then you say, yeah, but he wouldn't have known him. He would have known him both ways. So it's a difficult thing to work through. But the fact is, Saul was messed up. Mentally, emotionally. There could have been the passage of time issue. David could have grown up, but David could have looked totally different when he came to him. We don't know the answers to all these questions. We just don't. They're enduring questions. We got what, 3 minutes?
Yeah, but
Go ahead. Well, Frank first.
okay.
I'm sorry, Frank.
When he killed Goliath, he was too young to be in the army. Then when Saul asked who he is and all that, he put him over warriors. That means David was 20 or older. So there's probably several, 3 or 4 years, like L.A. said. But okay, so what does a 16-year-old boy look like when he becomes 20?
Yes.
He's grown up. He's a full man.
Sounds different.
Bigger, yeah.
Absolutely. So the passage of time, L.A. very likely explains it. His mind very likely explains it. Now, Doug, you were going to...
Let me go back and give a little evidence for the third possibility.
Okay.
Which is whenever David was chosen to come and play before him, in 1 Samuel 16:18, one of the servants answered and said, Look, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing, a mighty man of valor, a man of war, prudent in speech, and a handsome person, and the Lord is with him.
So a mighty man of valor and the Lord with him couldn't have been demonstrated any more powerfully than the killing of Goliath. So that would lend credence to the fact that maybe this was not the correct chronology. The end of the story is God. The end of the story is God killed Goliath and used David. That's the beauty of it. Thank you. Our time's up.